And the Supreme Court has reserved judgment in the appeals of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, and the Labour Party, while it also dismissed that of the Allied People Movement, APM, all of which are seeking to dismiss the Elections Court's decision affirming Bola Tinubu and the country's elected president. Our rights correspondent, Jeffrey Eshiemoghie, has been at the court proceeding, and he joins us now from the Federal Court of Appeal, from the Federal Capital Territory here in Abuja. Now, Jeffrey, okay, before we get to Jeffrey, at the moment, we still know that several parties are still in court, still challenging the mandate that has been given to the president right now, talking about Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and we have the PDP and also the APM, like we actually mentioned. And so in a moment, we'll be hoping to join Jeffrey Eshiemoghie to shed more light on the happenings today, because we know they're still contending that in court, and the Supreme Court has the final verdict, and we will be able to give the final verdict and actually put a seal on this particular issue moving forward.
That's right. Now, of course, you know, with the, shall I call it the smoking gun being the admission of new evidence from the Atiku camp, you know, it's no longer sort of business as usual. It's no longer as potentially predictable as it could have been, because I think everybody's awaiting to see how much, if any, impact at all the disclosures from Chicago University will have on this process. So I think it's going to be, you know, a little bit more exciting than just, you know, an appeal from the initial proceedings from the Presidential Tribunal. But we're going to cross over now to Abuja, where Godfrey is joining us. He's just outside the Supreme Court. And of course, proceedings have been ongoing. Can you give us a little bit of insight into what the atmosphere is just at the Supreme Court in Abuja, Godfrey?
Yes, good afternoon. There's been a buzz at the Supreme Court premises. Of course, in the road leading to the Supreme Court itself was cordoned off. Miles and miles of roads were cordoned off to traffic and to even pedestrians for most parts of the morning during the hearing of the appeals today. Of course, there's so much stakes on these particular case, as it were. So the matter held today, and of course the 7-member justice panel headed by Justice Eshiemoghie has now reserved ruling to a date to be communicated to all parties in the suit. Of course, the standout issue in today's proceeding is that of the counsel of Atiku Abubakar, Chris Uche, formally or orally applying to the court to allow the tendering of the academic records of the Chicago State University belonging to President Bola Tinubu. Of course, you know, Atiku Abubakar has come in with another angle, another twist in his case, seeking to have the president removed from office on grounds of forgery of the document which he submitted to INEC in the lead up to his running for Nigeria's highest office. Today, the matter came up, and the motion or the application was heard by the court, and the court stated in clear terms that this particular angle to Atiku's case boils down to the issue of national interest, and he urged Chris Uche to be very sure of what he's approaching the court for. And he also asked him, the court also asked him to give some clarity on why he thinks it has jurisdiction to hear this fresh evidence 180 days after this matter had been heard at the Presidential Election Petition Court. Chris Uche, his own submission in that respect as a response was that hearing of cases in the US is different from how it's obtainable in Commonwealth countries, and says that of the US shouldn't be compared, shouldn't be compared to that of what is obtainable in Nigeria, therefore. So there's nothing wrong in having this matter basically heard in the court, because the angle with which the counsel to Bola Tinubu and the APC had come from was that this particular deposition from the Chicago State University shouldn't be allowed here in the Nigerian court. So he said this is not how this is how things should be done. Basically, he has some sufficient grounds to want to have Tinubu disqualified on grounds of forgery. As to whether the court has jurisdiction, he brought up the issue of Order 2, Rule 12 of the Supreme Court rules, which it says grants him a window of opportunity to bring in a fresh evidence in this context. And then that's that of the PDP. And then Labour Party too came up with his own petition, with his own appeal, which of course is a follow-up on what transpired at the Presidential Election Petition Court. That aside, the APM, of course, was a dramatic aspect of it. The APM, you recall, they are contesting the ticket of Bola Tinubu on grounds of double nomination of his then running mate, Kashim Shettima, whom they accuse of double nomination. So the court said it was so angered by the fact that APM's case is agitating, they're using the word of the court, that it is agitating that the Supreme Court, APM's counsel, Chukwuma Ome, will come into the court with the same case that it had attended to, it had determined before now. You recall the PDP some time ago brought a similar case challenging Kashim Shettima on grounds of double nomination. The Supreme Court dismissed that, and it says, in this instant case, says it cannot overrule itself. It cannot sit on appeal of its own decision, and therefore said APM's case was unmeritorious, vexatious, in fact, and it was due to be dismissed. And of course, the lawyer subsequently, the counsel subsequently, taking a hint from the apex court, withdrew the appeal and was subsequently dismissed. That is more like a summary of what happened at the Supreme Court today.
All right, since you are the Supreme Court, and let me just take you up on the latest development. We know that the judges in the Supreme Court have dropped to an all-time low of 10, as Justice Atiku Mohammed has actually bowed out. Give us a sense. How are things like? What's the latest development, and what are we hearing from the Supreme Court about this?
Well, for now, there's no official statement about what the Supreme Court will likely, what line of action the Supreme Court will likely take to address this. Of course, we know very of a fact that 21 judges are the required number of justices in the Supreme Court. But right now, they are 11 man short, as it is. Judicial will be leaving the bowing out of the judicial scene on the 27th of October officially. So we're leaving 10 in place. So that will mean more workload for the remaining 10. So Nigerians are still eagerly waiting to see what the action of the president, the Nigerian president or Nigerian government will be with respect to appointing new judges. Of course, we recall recently they had appointed Federal High Court judges and Appeal Court judges. Of course, we know the next one should be Supreme Court judges. Of course, judges from the Appeal Court should be promoted to the next higher level. I guess that should logically be the next line of action from the government, of course. So we are still waiting to see how soon that will be.
Right, Godfrey, now just to go back to today's proceedings, what were some of the reactions following the proceedings that you got from the various camps?
Well, it was hard to get those ones now because the lawyers didn't speak, outside the court. The counsels didn't speak outside the court. It was basically within the court that arguments were taken and briefs of argument were adopted after these arguments were taken. But then you get a sense of the PDP side saying they are very sure of what they are coming to the Supreme Court with, that they are pretty much sure that these documents that is tendering could be a game changer. But on the other side, the APC camp, they are insisting even the deposition from the registrar of the Chicago State University isn't admissible in the U.S. court. So bringing that to a Nigerian court is more like a culture shock in their view. Wole Olanipekun of the President Bola Tinubu and Akin Olujimi of the APC both said the same thing, saying it is absolutely unnecessary or overreaching to want to bring in a strange document to come apply the same thing here the same document that isn't admissible in the US. So it's totally strange. So you get a sense of the APC camp saying that this PDP's argument, Atiku Abubakar's argument, that Bola Tinubu, President Bola Tinubu, I beg your pardon, isn't qualified to have been on the ballot box and on the ballot paper in the first place is untenable in their view, that the case lacks merit in its entirety and the court should dismiss that. But then, of course, you get the sense of the court being very careful. Where you heard, like I said earlier, the court was very specific in stating that Chris Uche, counsel to Atiku Abubakar, should be very sure of what is coming to the court with, because this is a matter of national interest. Looking at the damage this will amount to if the president is removed on account of forgery, so to speak. So he says this is a case, a criminal case in a sense, and it will require a lot of proving, evidence to prove that these allegations are true. Those are just some of the body language, if you like, of what happened today from all perspective of the court.
All right, Judicial correspondent Jeffrey Eshiemoghie, live from the Supreme Court of Nigeria there in Abuja. Thank you very much for your time here on Newsday.